The fall. The last day of luxury. Elena Hartwell stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of her father's penthouse office, watching the city lights sparkle below like scattered diamonds. At 25, she had always known this view, always known the weight of the Hartwell name, always known what it meant to be the daughter of Richard Hartwell, owner of the Hartwell Hotel Empire. 15 luxury hotels across the country, each one a masterpiece of elegance and service. This was her world. This was her future. She turned as her father entered, his face gray with exhaustion. He'd been in meetings all day with Victor Kane, his business partner of 20 years. Something was wrong. Elena could feel it in the air, heavy and suffocating like storm clouds gathering. "Dad? How did the meeting go?" Richard Hartwell looked at his daughter, and for the first time in her life, Elena saw fear in his eyes. Real bone-deep fear. "Elena, sweetheart, I need you to sit down." The betrayal unfolds. The next hours blurred together like a nightmare Elena couldn't wake from. Her father explained everything, his voice breaking as he spoke. Victor Kane had been stealing from the company for 3 years, falsifying records, creating shell companies, siphoning money into offshore accounts. And today Victor had made his final move. He'd called an emergency board meeting, presented fabricated evidence that Richard had been embezzling funds. The board, filled with Victor's allies, had voted. Richard Hartwell was removed as CEO of his own company. Victor Kane took control of everything. The hotels, the assets, the Hartwell name itself. How is this possible? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "You built this company from nothing. You own 51%. I owned 51%. Her father corrected, his hands shaking. "I signed papers 2 years ago. Victor convinced me to restructure. Said it would be better for taxes, for expansion. I trusted him. I trusted my friend." Elena felt ice water in her veins. "What does this mean?" "It means we've lost everything. The company, this penthouse, our home. The board has frozen all accounts pending investigation. Victor's lawyers say if I fight this, he'll press criminal charges. I could go to prison." Her father's face crumpled. This strong man, this titan of industry who'd built an empire from a single hotel, looked broken. "Dad, we'll fight this. We'll hire lawyers, we'll..." The words died in her throat as her father clutched his chest, his face going white. He collapsed before she could catch him. "Dad! Dad!" The hospital, the loss, the beginning of the end. Richard Hartwell survived the heart attack, but barely. The doctors said the stress had nearly killed him. He lay in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting him to machines, looking 20 years older than he had that morning. Elena sat beside him, holding his hand, as Victor Kane walked into the room. She'd known Victor her entire life. Uncle Victor, she'd called him as a child. He'd attended every birthday party, every graduation. He'd taught her to play chess. He'd been family. Now he stood in the doorway wearing a $5,000 suit and a smile that made Elena's blood boil. "Richard, I'm so sorry to hear about your health crisis," Victor said, his voice dripping with false concern. "So unfortunate. All this stress from your poor financial decisions." Elena stood, placing herself between Victor and her father. "Get out." "Now, Elena, is that any way to speak to the new CEO of Hartwell Hotels?" "Oh, excuse me. Kane Hotels now. I'm rebranding." "You stole everything from us. You lied, you manipulated, you..." "I made smart business decisions," Victor interrupted, his smile never faltering. "Your father was weak, sentimental. He let emotion cloud his judgment. I simply took what I deserved after 20 years of partnership. He trusted you. He called you his brother. And that was his mistake." Victor stepped closer, and Elena saw something in his eyes that terrified her. Pure, cold calculation. No remorse. No humanity. "Let me make something clear, little Elena. Your father built something remarkable, and now it's mine. Everything he worked for, everything he loved, it all belongs to me. And there's nothing you can do about it." Elena's father made a sound from the bed, trying to speak. Victor glanced at him, then back at Elena. "Oh, and one more thing. I'm going to need you to vacate the penthouse by the end of the week. I'm moving in. It has the best view in the city, after all." He left, and Elena collapsed into the chair, shaking with rage and helplessness. 3 months later, rock bottom. Elena had never worked a day in her life before the fall. She'd been studying for her MBA, preparing to join the family business, attending charity galas and networking events. She spoke 3 languages, could navigate any social situation, knew wine pairings and business strategy. None of that mattered now. She stood in the employee locker room of the Hartwell Grand, the flagship hotel her grandfather had built 60 years ago, pulling on the server uniform. Black pants, white shirt, black vest. Her name tag read Elena, with no last name. Just another anonymous employee among hundreds. Her father was living in a small apartment on the edge of the city, surviving on Social Security and the charity of old friends. Elena sent him every penny she could, working double shifts, picking up extra hours whenever possible. She'd sold everything she owned of value. Her jewelry, her designer clothes, her car. It still wasn't enough. The medical bills from his heart attack were crushing. The apartment was tiny, depressing. Her father barely spoke anymore, just sat by the window staring at nothing. The doctors said he was depressed, needed medication, needed therapy. All things they couldn't afford. Elena tied her hair back and checked her reflection. She looked tired, hollow, so different from the confident young woman who'd stood in that penthouse 3 months ago.
Elena,
"You're on ballroom service tonight. Big corporate event. Move it." She grabbed her serving tray and headed out. The cruelest coincidence. The corporate event was for Kane Hotels. Of course it was. Victor was celebrating the grand reopening of the Hartwell Grand, now renamed the Kane Grand. He'd renovated, rebranded, erased every trace of her family's legacy. Elena moved through the ballroom carrying champagne, keeping her head down, praying Victor wouldn't notice her. The room was full of business executives, politicians, socialites, people who'd attended parties at her family's home, people who'd called her father a friend. None of them recognized her now, or if they did, they pretended not to. She was invisible, just the help. Champagne here. Elena turned with her tray, and her blood ran cold. Victor Kane stood there with a group of executives, holding court like a king. He looked directly at her, and recognition flickered across his face. Then he smiled. Well,
Elena Hartul.
or should I say, just Elena now. His voice carried across the group, making them all turn to look at her. "Gentlemen, this young woman's father used to own this hotel, built it from nothing. Now look at her serving us drinks. How the mighty have fallen." Laughter rippled through the group. Elena felt her face burn with humiliation, but she kept her expression neutral. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. "Your father doing well?" Victor asked, false concern oozing from every word. "I heard he's living in that charming little apartment on 7th Street. 1 bedroom, I believe? Must be quite an adjustment from the penthouse." "My father is recovering," Elena said quietly, her voice steady despite the rage burning in her chest. "Ah, good. Well, if he needs anything, don't hesitate to ask. We take care of our former employees here at Kane Hotels. We're very generous with severance packages." More laughter. "Oh wait, he wasn't an employee, was he? He was the owner who drove his own company into the ground. My mistake." Elena set down the tray carefully, her hands shaking. She met Victor's eyes, saw the pleasure he took in her suffering, and something inside her crystallized. A decision. A vow. She would destroy this man. She would take back everything he'd stolen. She didn't know how yet, but she would find a way. Even if it took years. Even if it cost her everything. "Excuse me," she said quietly, and walked away with her head high. Behind her, Victor's laughter echoed through the ballroom. The stranger in the shadows. Elena stood in the employee break room after her shift, her hands wrapped around a cup of terrible vending machine coffee, trying to stop shaking. The humiliation of the evening sat heavy on her chest, making it hard to breathe. That was impressively calm. She spun around. A man stood in the doorway, tall and lean, dressed in an expensive suit that somehow looked uncomfortable on him, like he didn't quite belong in formal clothing. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes that looked tired and old despite him appearing to be only in his early 30s. "I'm sorry, this is the employee break room. Guests aren't." "I know. I'm not a guest." He stepped inside, and something about the way he moved reminded Elena of a wolf. Predatory but exhausted. "I saw what Victor did to you out there. That was cruel, even for him." "You know Victor? You could say that." A bitter smile crossed his face.
I'm Adrian Kane.
His son.
Elena started.
She'd heard of Adrian Kane in passing over the years. Victor's only child from his first marriage. But Adrian had left the family years ago, cut all ties, refused to work for Kane Industries. There'd been rumors of a falling out, something bitter and permanent. "Why are you here?" Elena asked carefully. "I came to watch my father celebrate his latest victory. He has so many these days." Adrian's voice was sharp with sarcasm. "And to see if the rumors were true. That Richard Hartwell's daughter was working as a server in her family's former hotel. That Victor was making a show of it. Enjoy the spectacle?"
No.
Adrian met her eyes, and Elena saw something there that surprised her. Understanding. Shared pain. "I know what it's like to be destroyed by Victor Kane. He did the same thing to my mother 20 years ago. Took everything from her in the divorce. Left her with nothing. She died 3 years later, broken and poor." Elena felt her anger shift, finding a new target. Or maybe finding an ally. "Why are you telling me this?" Adrian stepped closer. "Because you're planning revenge. I saw it in your eyes out there when Victor was mocking you. You're going to try to take him down. And if I am, then you'll fail. Victor is too powerful, too connected, too smart. He's been playing this game for 40 years. You're 25 years old with no resources, no allies, no leverage." Adrian paused. "Unless you team up with someone who knows all his secrets. Someone who has access to his world. Someone who hates him as much as you do." Elena's heart started beating faster. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting an alliance. You want revenge. So do I. I've been planning it for 3 years. Gathering evidence. Building resources. Waiting for the right moment." Adrian pulled out his phone, showed her a screen full of financial documents, offshore account numbers, emails. "I have enough to bury him, but I need one thing I don't have." "What?" "A way into his inner circle. Victor doesn't trust me, hasn't spoken to me in years. But if I suddenly showed up married to someone he's currently tormenting, someone he thinks is weak and defeated, he'd let his guard down. He'd want to watch us squirm. He'd make mistakes." Elena's breath caught. "You're asking me to marry you. I'm asking you to join me in destroying the man who ruined both our families. Marriage is just the weapon we'll use." Adrian's eyes were intense, burning with the same rage Elena felt in her own chest. "Think about it. The fallen princess and the prodigal son, together. It would drive him crazy. He'd obsess over us. And while he's distracted by our relationship, we dismantle his empire piece by piece." It was insane. Marry a complete stranger? Enter into some kind of revenge pact? But what other choice did she have? Working as a server, watching her father fade away in that depressing apartment, being humiliated by Victor at every turn? This was a chance. Maybe her only chance. What would be the terms? Elena asked slowly. "Strictly business. We get married, move in together, play the perfect couple in public. In private, we're partners executing a plan. 6 months, maybe a year. When Victor is destroyed, when we've taken back everything he stole, we divorce quietly and go our separate ways. No feelings. No complications." Exactly. Pure revenge. Nothing more. Elena thought of her father in that tiny apartment. Thought of Victor's mocking smile. Thought of everything she'd lost. Everything that had been stolen from her family. I have one condition, she said. Name it. When this is over, when we've destroyed him, I want him to know it was us. I want him to know that we took everything from him the same way he took everything from our families. I want to see his face when he realizes he lost. Adrian smiled, and it was sharp and dangerous and full of promise. Deal. He extended his hand. Elena took it, shaking firmly. When do we start? She asked. Tonight. We're getting married tomorrow. I've already made the arrangements. All you need to do is show up.
Elena's head spun.
This was moving so fast. But fast was good. Fast meant Victor wouldn't see it coming. Tomorrow, she agreed. As Adrian left, Elena stood alone in the break room, her heart pounding. She'd just agreed to marry a stranger, to enter into a revenge plot that could either save her family or destroy what little she had left. But looking down at the server uniform she still wore, at the name tag that read simply Elena, she knew she had no choice. Victor Kane had taken everything from her. Now she would take everything from him. The war had begun. The alliance. The wedding nobody expected. Elena stood in front of the courthouse in a simple cream dress she'd borrowed from her neighbor. No flowers, no family, no fanfare. Just her and Adrian Kane, two strangers about to legally bind themselves together for revenge. Adrian arrived in a black suit, looking as uncomfortable as she felt. He carried 2 cups of coffee and handed her one. Thought you might need this, he said. Thanks. Elena took a sip, grateful for the warmth. It was early morning, barely 7. They'd scheduled the courthouse wedding for the first appointment to avoid attention. Did you tell your father? Sent him an email an hour ago. Just the facts. Got married. Thought you should know. Nothing more. Adrian checked his phone. He's calling me repeatedly. I'm not answering. He'll be furious. Good. That's the point. Adrian met her eyes. Last chance to back out. Once we do this, there's no going back. Victor will make our lives difficult. He'll try to intimidate you, manipulate you, maybe even threaten you. Elena thought of her father in that tiny apartment, of Victor's mocking laughter echoing through the ballroom. I'm not backing out. Then let's get married. The ceremony took 12 minutes. They signed papers, a judge said words Elena barely heard, and suddenly she was Elena Kane. Felt surreal, like watching someone else's life happen. When the judge said, "You may kiss the bride," Adrian looked at her with a question in his eyes. Elena nodded slightly. They had to make this look real, even here. The kiss was brief, formal, nothing more than lips touching. But Elena felt an unexpected jolt, like static electricity. Adrian pulled back quickly, looking surprised. Okay then, he said awkwardly. We're married. We're married, Elena repeated, the words feeling strange on her tongue. As they walked out of the courthouse, Adrian's phone exploded with calls and messages. Victor, business associates, old family friends. Word was spreading fast. Ready for the fun part? Adrian asked. What's the fun part? Telling the world, and watching my father's empire start to crack. Moving in the stranger's home. Adrian's penthouse was nothing like Elena expected. She'd imagined something cold and modern, all steel and glass. Instead, the space was warm, filled with books and art, comfortable furniture that looked lived in. The walls were covered with photographs, travel pictures from around the world. You travel a lot? Elena asked, setting down her single suitcase. Everything she owned fit in one bag now. I did. Before I came back to the city 3 years ago to start planning Victor's downfall. Adrian showed her to the guest bedroom. This is your room. Private bathroom, plenty of closet space. My room is on the other side of the apartment, so we won't be in each other's way. The bedroom was beautiful, bigger than the entire apartment she'd been sharing with her father. Elena felt tears prick her eyes but forced them back. Thank you. This is very generous. It's not generosity, it's partnership. Adrian handed her a key. We need to establish some ground rules. First, we maintain separate lives in private. You have your space, I have mine. We're roommates, not a real couple. Agreed. Second, in public, we're devoted newlyweds. Touching, affection, the whole performance. We need Victor to believe this is real, that we're actually in love.
Elena nodded.
I can do that. Third, we meet every evening at 9 to plan strategy. Share information, coordinate our moves against Victor. This is a business arrangement, so we treat it like business. Makes sense. And fourth, Adrian hesitated. No real feelings. This is revenge, nothing more. When it's over, we walk away clean.
No complications.
I'm not looking for love, Adrian. I'm looking for justice. You don't have to worry about me getting attached. Good, because I've seen what love does to people. It makes them weak, vulnerable. My mother loved my father, and he destroyed her with it. I won't make that mistake. Elena heard the pain in his voice, the old wound that had never healed. I'm sorry about your mother. Don't be sorry. Be ready to make him pay for what he did to her, to your father, to everyone he's ever hurt. They stood in the hallway, two damaged people bound together by rage and pain, and Elena wondered if this alliance would save them or destroy them both. The first public appearance. 3 days after the wedding, Adrian arranged their first public appearance at a charity gala. The same kind of event Elena used to attend as Richard Hartwell's daughter, wearing designer gowns and mingling with the elite. Now she was attending as Adrian Kane's wife, and she had nothing to wear. We need to go shopping, Adrian said that afternoon. I don't have money for our money, Elena. We're married now, remember? What's mine is yours, at least for the next year. He grabbed his wallet. Besides, if we're going to convince people this marriage is real, you need to look like my wife, not like a broke server? I wasn't going to say it that harshly, but yes. They went to the most expensive boutique in the city, the kind of place Elena used to shop without looking at price tags. Now she hesitated at the door. I can't afford. I can. Come on. Adrian pulled her inside. The staff recognized him immediately, fawning over him, offering champagne and attention. When they realized Elena was his wife, their eyes went wide with shock and curiosity. Something elegant for a charity gala tonight, Adrian told them. Show her everything. For the next hour, Elena tried on dresses while Adrian sat in a chair, giving opinions. It was strange, intimate in a way she hadn't expected. He had good taste, steering her away from the overly flashy options toward classic, elegant styles. That one, he said when she emerged in a deep emerald dress that hugged her figure perfectly. That's the one. Elena looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked powerful, confident, beautiful, like the Elena she used to be, but stronger. You look amazing, Adrian said quietly. Thank you. Elena met his eyes in the mirror. Why are you doing this? Really? You have enough evidence to take down Victor on your own. Why bring me into it? Adrian was silent for a long moment. Because going after my father alone makes me look like a bitter son seeking revenge. But going after him with you, with Richard Hartwell's daughter by my side, that makes it look like justice. It gives credibility to every accusation we make. So I'm a prop, a tool for your revenge.
No.
Adrian stood, walked closer. You're a partner. We're using each other, yes, but it's mutual. I get credibility, you get resources and access. We both get revenge. Fair trade. It was fair, Elena realized. Brutal honesty, but fair. Okay then, let's go convince the world we're in love. The gala, performance of a lifetime. The charity gala was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Kane Grand Hotel. The irony wasn't lost on Elena as she walked into her family's former property on Adrian's arm, wearing a designer dress and a fake smile. Every head turned when they entered. The whispers started immediately. Is that Adrian Kane? I heard he got married. That's Richard Hartwell's daughter. What is Victor going to think? Adrian's hand was warm on her back, steady and reassuring. He leaned close, whispered in her ear, "Showtime." They worked the room together, Adrian introducing her as his wife, Elena playing the role of the devoted newlywed. She laughed at his jokes, touched his arm, gazed at him with fake adoration. And Adrian played his part perfectly, looking at her like she was the only person in the room, keeping her close, protective and attentive. Felt disturbingly natural. Then Victor arrived. Elena saw him across the room, his face thunderous with rage barely contained beneath a polite smile. He made his way toward them, cutting through the crowd like a shark through water. Adrian, what a surprise to see you here. Victor's voice was cold. And with a wife, no less. You could have invited your father to the wedding. It was a private ceremony, Adrian said smoothly. Small, intimate. Just the two of us. When you're truly in love, you don't need a crowd. Love. Victor's laugh was harsh. You expect me to believe you married Richard Hartwell's daughter out of love? 3 months after I took over his company? This is obviously some kind of scheme. Believe what you want, father. Elena and I are very happy together. Victor turned his cold gaze on Elena. And you, girl, what do you think you're doing? Trying to get revenge by marrying my son? It won't work. You have no power, no resources, no. She has me, Adrian interrupted, his voice sharp. And that's more than enough. The tension crackled between father and son. Elena could see years of hatred and pain in both their eyes. You're making a mistake, Victor said quietly. Both of you. I don't know what you're planning, but I will crush it. And you. Try, Elena said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. But remember, you taught me something important, Mr. Kane. You taught me that the mighty can fall. You proved it when you destroyed my father. Maybe it's time someone proved it with you. Victor's face went dark with rage. For a moment, Elena thought he might actually strike her. But they were in public, surrounded by witnesses. He couldn't make a scene. This isn't over, he hissed and walked away. Adrian pulled Elena close, his heart hammering against her side. That was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. He needed to know we're not afraid of him. He also now knows we're definitely planning something. We just showed our hand. Good. Let him worry. Let him wonder. Fear is a weapon too. Adrian looked at her with new respect. You're tougher than I thought. You have no idea what I'm capable of when someone hurts my family. Late night strategy. That night, at 9 o'clock exactly, they met in Adrian's study. He'd converted one wall into a massive board covered with documents, photographs, financial records. It looked like something from a detective show. Welcome to the war room, Adrian said, handing her a glass of wine. Everything I've gathered on Victor over the past 3 years. Bank records, emails, testimonies from people he's destroyed. It's all here. Elena studied the board, overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information. How did you get all this? Money, mostly. Private investigators, hackers, former employees willing to talk. I've spent every dollar I made working abroad on this project. Adrian pointed to a section of financial documents. Here's where it gets interesting. Victor has been laundering money through offshore accounts for 5 years. Not just from your father's company, but from multiple sources. He's built a house of cards, and we're going to knock it down. How? We need proof that will hold up in court. Real, solid evidence that can't be disputed. I have most of it, but there's one thing missing. Adrian pulled up a document on his laptop. Victor keeps a private server at his estate. It contains the original financial records, unaltered. Everything we need to prove the money laundering, the fraud, all of it. So we need to get into his estate and access his server. Exactly. Which is impossible because Victor's security is military grade. Unless, Adrian looked at her, unless his son and daughter-in-law came for a family dinner, which he would never suspect because he thinks we're just playing at revenge. He thinks we're amateurs.
Elena smiled.
So we play the perfect couple, get invited to dinner, and steal the evidence from under his nose. It's risky. If he catches us, he won't. Because we'll be so convincing as a married couple that he'll never suspect we're there to rob him. They spent the next 3 hours planning, working out details, discussing strategies. Elena was surprised by how well they worked together, how naturally their minds synced when focused on a common goal. At midnight, Adrian finally closed his laptop. We should get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. We're having lunch with a reporter from the Financial Times. I'm going to leak some preliminary information about Victor's business practices. Good. Start building public pressure. Exactly. Adrian stood, stretched. You did well tonight at the gala. The performance was convincing. So was yours.
Elena hesitated.
Adrian, when you kissed me at the courthouse, did you feel? What? Nothing. Never mind. She turned to leave.
Elena.
His voice stopped her. We can't let this get complicated. We have to stay focused. I know. I'm not getting feelings or anything. I was just asking. But as she walked to her room, Elena realized she'd lied. Because when Adrian had defended her against Victor, when he'd called her tough, when he'd looked at her with respect and something else she couldn't quite name, she'd felt something shift inside her chest. Something dangerous. Something that felt suspiciously like attraction. The cracks begin to show. Over the next 3 weeks, Elena and Adrian fell into a routine. They had breakfast together, coordinating their schedules. They attended events as a couple, performing their roles perfectly. They met every night at 9 to plan their next move against Victor. And slowly, without meaning to, they started becoming friends. It started with small things. Adrian making her coffee the way she liked it without asking. Elena cooking dinner when she noticed he'd been working too hard. Shared jokes, comfortable silences, conversations that stretched late into the night about things that had nothing to do with revenge. Elena learned that Adrian had wanted to be an architect, not a businessman. That he'd spent 5 years in Japan studying design before his mother got sick and he had to come home. That he blamed himself for not being there when she died. Adrian learned that Elena had wanted to teach, that she'd volunteered at schools before the fall, that she loved literature and poetry but had never told her father because he'd expected her to study business. They learned each other's fears, dreams, regrets. And with each conversation, with each shared secret, the line between performance and reality blurred a little more. One night, after a particularly difficult public appearance where Victor had cornered Elena and made thinly veiled threats, Adrian found her in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep. Hey, he said softly. You okay? Fine. Just couldn't sleep. He sat beside her at the counter. What Victor said tonight, about destroying anyone who stands against him. Don't let it get to you. He's just trying to scare us. I know. Elena turned to face him. But what if he's right? What if we can't beat him? What if we're just two damaged people playing at revenge when we should just accept that people like Victor always win?
No.
Adrian's voice was fierce. People like Victor win when good people give up. When they decide the fight isn't worth it. But we're not giving up. We're going to take him down, and we're going to do it together. His hand covered hers on the counter. Warm, solid, real. Together, Elena whispered. They sat in the dark kitchen, hands touching, and Elena realized with a surge of panic that she didn't want this to end in 6 months. Didn't want to go back to separate lives when the revenge was complete. She was falling for her fake husband. And from the way Adrian was looking at her, with something soft and dangerous in his eyes, she suspected he might be falling too. We should go to bed, Adrian said. But he didn't move. Yeah, we should. Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, tense and electric, full of possibility and danger. Then Adrian stood abruptly.
Good night, Elena.
Good night. He left, and Elena sat alone in the dark, her heart pounding, knowing that everything had just changed. Their alliance wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about something far more dangerous, something that could destroy them both. The truth, the invitation to danger. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by courier in an expensive envelope. Victor Kane requested the pleasure of Adrian and Elena's company for dinner at his estate that Friday evening. He's testing us, Adrian said, studying the invitation. Seeing if we'll actually come. Of course we're coming. This is exactly what we've been waiting for. Elena's heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. His private server is in that house. This is our chance. It's also a trap. Victor doesn't do anything without calculation. He's planning something. Let him plan. We'll be ready. They spent the next 3 days preparing obsessively. Adrian created a small device that could copy the server data in under 10 minutes. Elena memorized the layout of Victor's estate from blueprints Adrian had acquired. They practiced their couple routine until it was seamless, until the touches and glances felt automatic. Too automatic, Elena thought as Adrian's hand settled naturally on her waist during one of their practice sessions. Too real. You're distracted, Adrian said. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm just nervous about Friday.